Punch till 7 p.m. Fixture in the New Orleans sports market for nearly 4 decades, he serves as sports director of WGNO ABC 26, 23rd year of signature prep sports TV show in the area, Friday Night Football, WNOL, NOAA 38, and WGNO every Friday night. JT Curtis is also a feature writer for SportsNOLA.com and the Clarion Herald. Serves as a host of the Three Tailgaters show Saturday mornings on WGSO 990 AM. Of course, the Saints lost in overtime to San Francisco 27-24. They host the Bengals. It's coming Sunday at noon on Saints Hall of Fame Alumni Weekend. Please give a warm quarterback club welcome to Ed Daniels. Ed?
Thank you, Kenneth. Good to be here with everybody today. You know, I was on the sideline at the LSU game on Saturday in the last couple of minutes, and I could hear Hank Tierney in my voice, in my head, over here speaking to me. Programs win games, and you know, I kind of watched an elite program win a game Saturday night that frankly they had no business winning, but they won it, and it was disappointing really to see how that whole thing played out. And you know, everyone talks about LSU down at the 6-yard line. Well, I'm not so sure they would have scored a touchdown from the 6-yard line. They might have been kicking a field goal anyhow. But that's the way it turned out, and they got the penalty, and a lot of other things happened, and they wound up losing the game. It's a pleasure to be part of the Ken Trahan Radio Network. I know Gailey was probably doing the game with him on Saturday. I don't know how much words he got in, whether he was actually able to say anything during the game or not. Usually when we do the radio show on Saturday, Gailey and I get 1% of the commenting time, and Trahan gets the other 98. So I don't know how much he got to say on Saturday, but I hope you had a good time anyhow watching the game, Rick.
The weather was really good.
The weather was really good. That's all you had time to say, was the weather was really good. Marlon Favorite can not only play football, but he can sing and dance. In fact, after LSU won I don't know if it was the Chick-fil-A Bowl or the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in 2008, my wife chewed me out for being in Atlanta on New Year's Eve at the LSU game. I enjoyed it. I'm sorry she didn't, but I had a great time as they clobbered Georgia Tech, and then Big Fave did a little rap for us after the game. That's still one of the greatest moments in WGNO TV sports history. We loved it a bunch. And Curtis Akey, I know he's in Green, but he graduated from another place somewhere close to here. If you go up I-10 west about an hour, he's a graduate of that school, but we cannot mention that at this point because he might get in a lot of trouble. Also happy to see my son Brandon Rizzuto here today. I'm very proud of him and all he's done. He'll probably be the commissioner of the NFL one day, and I'll need a job, and he'll tell me he has no openings. But you know. And of course, Ro Brown, I've always admired him since I was a 3rd grader at St. Mary Magdalene. I said I wanted to be like him, and to be here in Ro Brown's presence today is a thrill. He's got a lot of gray hair, a lot of snowflakes up there. Sometimes when I see him, I think he's living in Washington State, but he's down here in Louisiana. I know there was a comment earlier about LSU getting a younger offensive coordinator. Well, last year, LSU was the first school in Southeastern Conference history to have a 3,000-yard passer, 2 1,000-yard receivers, and a 1,000-yard rusher in the same year. And frankly, they looked, to use Les Miles' term, they were damn strong on offense. Their problem last year was defensively, where they, in a stretch of games in the middle of the year that really decided the quality of their season, they gave up 625 yards rushing over a 3-game stretch. They got run on big time at Mississippi State and at Georgia. This year, their defense is a lot better, but they don't have Zach Mettenberger. And if you don't think the quarterback makes a big difference, Mississippi State has Dak Prescott. Auburn has Nick Marshall. Alabama has Blake Sims, who's done a solid job, and of course, Bo Wallace at Ole Miss. One of the reasons why the SEC East is so bad this year is because they don't really have a lot of good quarterbacks. Connor Shaw was drafted, pretty good player for South Carolina, very underrated in my opinion as an SEC quarterback. And of course, Aaron Murray at Georgia, who was outstanding. Missouri is on the top of the SEC East standings. Their quarterback is Matty Mock. He's pretty good. He replaced James Franklin, who was an outstanding quarterback at Missouri. So, and I think that LSU struggles at quarterback will help them recruit quarterbacks, not the other way around. Because there might be some really good quarterbacks around the country saying, you know what, watch the game on Saturday night and said, I might be able to do better than that. So I don't think LSU's going to have any problem recruiting quarterbacks, and they've already done that for the future. There's no doubt that who your quarterback is makes a big difference in the SEC standings. And look, LSU's got a lot of good young players, a really good group of young players. And Kendall Beckwith and Godshaw are outstanding players on defense, and their secondary is pretty good. Jamal Adams is the best player in the secondary I've seen at LSU since Patrick Peterson. He's an elite athlete, and I think they're going to be very good next year. And if they can get Jennings or Harris to play better, or if they can get another quarterback, I think they have a chance to win the national championship in the next few years. As far as the Saints are concerned, can't close out games. As far as I'm concerned, their pass defense has cost them 4 games. So right now, instead of being 4-5, theoretically, they could be 8-1. I know this, their record would be a lot better if they could somehow get some stops at the end of the game. 51-yard completion at the end of the game yesterday. That's an absolute killer. You can't let that happen. The last time that I remember something like that happening is in 1993 when they played the Packers and Brett Favre threw a long pass, I think, to Sterling Sharp to break open a game, and that was really a big loss for the Saints in the 93 season, and they didn't make the playoffs. So I hope last night, or yesterday afternoon's game, doesn't have that kind of cumulative effect. And I agree with Hank about Tulane University. You know, I wrote a column this week for the Clarion Herald, which I do every Sunday, and I enjoy quite a bit. And one of the points I made in the column was this. At the Superdome, everyone said you can't win at the Superdome. Well, I don't know. I go back to 1998. I think they were pretty good there. And some other years. When they were in the Superdome, they beat LSU 3 consecutive years, 79, 80, and 81. I've never seen the Superdome or Ullman Stadium make a tackle, catch a pass, or throw a touchdown pass. Part of Tulane's problem was from 1975 to 2014 at the Superdome, they had 11 different head coaches. So that's every 3.5 years, on average, you're making a change. That's not any way to operate. And I think the biggest thing that Tulane needs to do is make a real commitment to football. Now, everyone thinks building a 22,000 seat stadium is making a real commitment to football. I disagree completely. And I was talking to an elite Tulane athlete a couple of weeks ago, and this athlete, who shall remain nameless, says they still haven't made the commitment. And in my opinion, they haven't. So until that happens, we'll have people every year talking about changing coaches, which is absolute foolishness. So, and I don't like the split either. If you look at the high school playoffs this week, the brackets are strewn all over the place. And, you know, everyone makes a big deal out of Rummel not being the number 1 seed in Division I, and rightly so. But what about Jesuit High School? They have 2 losses this year by 3 points to 2 undefeated teams, Rummel and Ponchatoula. They're pretty good, right, Coach? Very good, okay? They've got 2 losses this year to Rummel and Ponchatoula by 3 points each. Yet, they're the 6th seed. They're going to play St. Aug again on Friday night, and if they win, they have to go to St. Thomas More, and St. Thomas More is the 3 seed. St. Thomas More not only gets the next week's home game, they have a bye this week. St. Thomas More played 2 5A schools this year, Karen Crow and Sulphur. Neither one of them are very good, as far as I know. Not as good as they have been in the past. So I would say 2 average 5A football schools this year. They have played 1 3A school from Texas, another 3A school from Louisiana, and the rest of their schedule is 4A. Jesuit played 9 5A schools and 1 4A school, which is defending 4A champion East Jefferson. Yet somehow St. Thomas More gets a bye, and they get the home game the next week. The whole situation doesn't make sense. But I do know one thing, the principal at Winfield, who started all of this, she's jumping up and down today because her 1-9 Tigers are in the playoffs. They won their last game, thank God. Her 1-9 Tigers are in the playoffs with the chance to win a state championship. And for that, I can rest easy at night. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned Marlon Favorite's ability to sing. So could you please ask him to write you a new song for the...
No, I think you ought. I think before we leave today, you ought to get up and do a tune for us.
Because he can definitely write a better song and do better than what you got right now. I mean, that song is terrible.
You don't like that song?
No, it's terrible. I
I
mean,
got
Marlon,
you.
help
I
him
got
out.
I got you. Well, we kind of like it, Bobby. You know what I mean? Hey, look, that's what the mute button is for. Yes, sir.
In the LSU game, I thought that in overtime they did not play to their strengths. Why did they not at least try to run the ball?
Well, they had a hard time running the ball the whole game. They had the ball for 38 minutes. They had the ball for 38 minutes, and they had 259 total yards. So to think that they could line up and somehow run the ball 3 times into the teeth of the Alabama defense and make yards in that red zone area, in that red area, I don't prescribe to that. I think what you got to do is, if you're going to win these kind of games, you got to have enough plays in the passing game from your quarterback to make it happen. And look, Alabama had the same quarterback for 4 years, and he won a lot of games. And right now, what you're seeing at Alabama is they had a little shortage of quarterbacks too, right? Blake Sims is pretty good. They brought in Coker from Florida State, who was the graduate student, to essentially beat him out this year, and he couldn't do it. But you can't underestimate the importance of the quarterback position, and let's hope that LSU gets that fixed in the next year or two, because as far as I'm concerned, if you look at all the quarterbacks in the SEC who are not going to be here after this year in the West, Dak Prescott's going to the NFL. He hasn't announced yet. I'll announce it for him. Nick Marshall's a senior. Blake Sims is a senior. Bo Wallace is a senior. In the SEC West next year, there is a gigantic opportunity for LSU. And their defense is very good. And Fournette and Darrell Williams are going to both be back. Now, the one thing that LSU has to do next year that could be problematic for them is they're going to have to rebuild their outstanding offensive line. Because I think Vidal Alexander, who is a junior, is going to go pro. Lyle Collins is a senior. And I think there's a possibility that Joseph Hawkins, their right guard, goes pro as well. So they could be in a situation where their only returning starter on the offensive line is Ethan Posick. So they're going to have a young offensive line next year that they're going to have to rebuild. But I think their defense next year has a chance to be lights out, maybe as good as the 11 defense, which was magnificent. And if that's the case, if they get some plays at the quarterback position, they can win the national championship. And here's a great thing about that. If that happens, Kevin Keitel has already assured me that he's taken my entire family to the championship game on his dime. And frankly, he can afford it, so I'm excited about that. Thanks, Kevin.
I do have a serious question. Speaking of quarterbacks, give me your opinion of Drew Brees' performance yesterday.
Well, up until yesterday, he had not thrown an interception at home to anybody other than the Tampa Bay Bucks. He had thrown 3 picks all year in the 3 home games. But yesterday, he made some mistakes. The one before the half was not good. And then his explanation on the fumble at the end of the game was Travaris Cadet was tripped, and he was waiting for him to get up, because if he did, he was wide open. And there was nobody deep because everybody else was running streaks for the Saints. So they're running deep routes. So he did hold on to the ball a little bit too long. But again, people can criticize Drew Brees, but if Drew Brees, and Kenny and I were having this conversation last night, if Drew Brees does not play well, the Saints can't win. And he's still an elite quarterback. Their problem is, in the secondary, it's happened 4 times this year. I think it's pretty obvious. Yes, sir.
And concerning that, what you're saying, if possible, is a split for all sports. Have you heard anything?
That's not going to happen, Stan. But the one thing I'm going to do in the January convention is I'm going to write in Ken Trahan as commissioner. I think he doesn't have enough to do. I think he could probably do that as a side job. But I don't think that's going to happen. Here's one of the reasons why, from a financial standpoint. The All-State Sugar Bowl is their title sponsor of all their titles now. And one of the things the Sugar Bowl has in their contract is if there's a total split, they're out. And frankly, I don't know why the public schools would vote to get back together. They got everything exactly the way they want now. They kicked the private schools out of the playoffs, yet they still get their money, and they still have them playing by their rules. So why would you want them out?
But would that, like, make the incentive for the private schools to say, look, we can make all this money in TV?
I agree completely. And in my opinion, what I've told the private schools is this: if it doesn't get back together at the January convention, you guys need to move on. Okay? It's not that hard. You can form your own association. We're not building a nuclear bomb. We're not flying the space shuttle. It's a high school athletic league. And there's got to be somebody out there who can organize it and do it for you. And I don't think it's that hard. Kenny Trahan. That'd be great. We could second guess him even more than we do now. Like Haley, wouldn't that be good?
Yes, indeed. I've got the questions already.
I got him barbecuing. In print, on radio, and television, on all the stations that he used to work at. Yes, sir.
It's not a question, it's a comment. The principals do all the voting at the LHS.
That's correct.
Okay. But it seems to me that every principal at any public school that I've ever seen that has a commitment to athletics and is really committed to put their coaches there and everything and support it, has done well. So I blame the principals at any schools who have not made the commitment to athletics.
Well, part of the problem, and Rick and Kenny and I have talked about this in umpteen commercial breaks on Saturday morning. One of the issues is that, well, first of all, let me just say to you, there are some private schools who like the split too. The smaller private schools love the split because they don't have to play Kentwood and Mangum and all the really good clubs in 1A and 2A. They don't have to play West St. John. So it's not a completely public school issue. A lot of the small private schools like to get to the Dome too. Getting to the Dome has become such an obsession in the state, it's crazy what it's become over the last 25 or 30 years. Plus, I think this too. Part of the problem is that I used to know a lot of high school coaches who became athletic directors and later principals. That's not happening anymore. Those people are not in athletics. And frankly, a lot of them, being around some of the principals that I've been around in the past, they really do not like the fact that the high school football coach is the most popular person on campus. I think that brings a certain point of discomfort to them. You know, I say that with my friend right here next to me, you know. You may have had some experience with that in the past. But in my opinion, there are several administrators who are severely threatened by the fact that the high school coach is a very well-liked and powerful person on campus. And they want to make sure that happens. And as far as, I'll take that a step further. When you deal with Tulane, my feeling is that there's a certain element on the Tulane campus does not want athletics to be great because they don't want to have to deal with it. And I think it's the same way. There's not enough coaches who are now administrators who are calling the shots like there used to be. Because if there were, okay, the coaches would get together and they know what it's like to compete on Friday nights, and they would have some starting point as to how to deal with this situation. Anybody else?
Who would you recommend to be the next commissioner?
I'm looking at him right here.
Nothing seriously.
I'm serious. I'm serious. Look, he only works 20 hours a day, so and the other he could sleep 1 hour a night instead of 4. He'd be great.
He's got to be a principal.
But you got to understand, he's 3/4 of the way there because he's a principled man. Okay. Thank you very much.